Half the time I find myself reminding myself of the importance of keeping an open mind and being really scared by the prospect of playing certain types of roles and surprised by my desire to face those challenges. I've learned a lot about preparation over the years, and actually it's so important to let the preparation go, because you can get stuck in this little sort of tunnel all of your own, beetling away at home and preparing who you think the character is. But the reality is you have to leave so many sort of blank spaces for other people to fill by way of the director and the other actors and the things that they think, and also what they are bringing to the project through the roles that they're playing or what the director has to say. If I am playing a role in a film that is an adaptation of a book, I would always read the book, unless I had been specifically asked not to by the director. But often for me, I find that incredibly useful, and I will always find myself referring back to the book, almost obsessively actually. It sort of becomes my armour, my friend, particularly in the case of Revolutionary Road and The Reader. Both of those films I remember really, I just would scour the book for pieces of information that surely the writer hadn't found or surely the director hadn't seen, and I always really enjoy that.
Can you talk about the feeling you all have about whether a film is going well or not going well?
You have no idea. I mean, you have no idea about the end result, really, I don't think. I've been very wrong about a couple of them, both ways, unfortunately. I mean, I think, you can only hope to do the best work that you can that day, because film is a collaborative medium. There is a million times where it can go wrong, and there are a million times when it can go right as well. But, you can not have communicated properly to a director, and the director cannot have communicated properly to the crew, and the crew, I mean, there are a million. It is a miracle when it actually works. Mm-hmm. It's never what I imagine it's going to be.
I went about it a very strange way, because I never set my heart. I quite liked, I liked acting at school. I was enchanting as the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, I think. I still have the costume. I slip into it sometimes. I did some acting when I was at university as a sort of, in the drama society there. But it was never going to be, I never thought it would be my career. And then, oddly enough, I made a film, an amateur film at Oxford when I was there. Some guy got together a little bit of money with the help of John Schlesinger, whose portrait is just outside this room, and we shot that film, and really it was pretty pretentious. But agents came up to me right here at BAFTA in summer of 1982, when it had a screening, and said, "Do you want to be an actor?" And I said, "No, thank you very much." And then I went home, and I was thinking, because I was due to go off and do another degree somewhere else, and I suddenly thought, actually, I need money. So I rang up the agents. I said, "All right, yeah, I'll be an actor for a year." And I was so bad, frankly, that I thought I'd better do another job, another acting job, to prove I'm not as bad as I was in the first one. And that process has now gone on for 36 years.
When I was younger, and you'd be in digs up and down the country and hanging out in bars with actors, and it would get to that part of the conversation where actors discussed their process, I would go to the men's room or put the kettle on or just go quiet, because my dreadful secret was that I didn't have a process, and I still don't have a process, and I just never got around to having a process. The standard questions are, how much research did you do for this part? And I am old enough now, and it's refreshing. When you're younger, you have to lie. But when you're my age, you're allowed to say, if you ask me the question, how much research did I do for this part? The answer is absolutely none whatsoever. Because I work at a level of writing where anything I need to know, any of the information, usually is in the script. If there's something specific, you go ask. But it's very rare. And also they say, how did you get into character? Well, I'm also old enough to say that I've never knowingly been in character in my life. I've heard great things about it, but it's just outside of my experience. I don't actually know what they're talking about. I was approached in the street recently by a young woman who said that she'd seen me in a play and she very much enjoyed it. And I said, well, thank you. And she said, I'm trying to be an actor. And I said, how's that going? She said, well, I'm having a little trouble with my drama teacher. I said, what kind of trouble are you having with your drama teacher? She said, well, I'm having difficulty with the feelings. I said, the feelings? She said, like I would, she said, the feelings. Like I would know. I said, you saw me in a play? She said, yeah, and you thought it was good. She said, I thought it was absolutely marvelous. I said, well, I can absolutely guarantee you that I'm not feeling anything. I'm at work. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit busy. I'm a bit pushed. I have to achieve about 1,500 things over a period of 2.5 hours or whatever the play length might be. I have to make love to a woman, smoke cigarettes, reach the door handle, hit the door handle when that verbal cue comes, because otherwise the lights all go funny. I have to, get semi-naked and eat chili con carne. I'm occupied. I can't be feeling stuff. That I do in my own time. And you can't phone up on a wet Wednesday and say, do you know what? I'm not feeling it, so I don't think I'll come in today.
There are challenges in every single day. The biggest one, to be honest with you, I think is being able to stay focused, because you can rehearse and you can plan everything and you can think you have a framework that you want to stick with, or a few ideas that you want to remember to keep in your back pocket. And sometimes the craziness of an on-set environment can be so intense that you can find yourself forgetting all of those things that you planned. So actually really, really staying focused and knowing that it's okay to kind of take yourself off into a quiet corner and just remember what it was that you had set out to do. And also just being very accepting of everyone, really, because actors can be quite weird, and they all have their sort of tics and ways, and it's such a privilege to see how odd everyone is, but at the same time it can really affect your day and how you're playing a role if you allow yourself to be caught up in someone else's stuff or someone else's process. And so just being accepting and sort of enjoying them for everything that they are. One thing that's always helped me is really never judging other people. There's always going to be something that they'll land on in the end, and often we all just have to go through a bunch of silly stuff first in order to get to that place, and that doesn't happen unless you just let it,
I think it's very difficult to kind of have been brought up with actors and writers and directors and that kind of creativity and not be fascinated by it. It always feels like you can change the world, or it did when I was small and I was watching my parents. So I think it was always something that I wanted to be a part of.
Can you remember the first time you kind of sensed this is what you wanted to do?
I never remember wanting to do anything else. I wish that I did, because I think it would be so much more interesting if I could say, yes, I wanted to be a fireman, or I wanted to be something. But it was always, apparently, and obviously I don't remember, but apparently I asked for an agent at the age of 3.
Did they get you one?
No, they didn't, and I was really angry, and they finally got me one when I was 6.
Well, they're all challenges. Every job's been I'm racked with anxiety. But I have to say, having signed up to do Florence Foster Jenkins, in the knowledge that I was going to be playing opposite Meryl Streep, you can't get much more frightening than that. And also there was a long delay between signing up and actually starting. I think it was like 12 months or something. That's a long time to be frightened. So that was extremely frightening. Day one of that. The technology of filmmaking hasn't changed very much in 100 years. And it's still damn slow. So, as you film maybe 2 pages of script a day, a little bit more if it's television, but that's basically you're making 2 minutes of the film in a 12 or 14-hour day. So there's an incredible element of tedium. And this is what people always find when they visit the set. They say, well, can I come and visit you on the set? And you say, well, I don't think you're going to want to. They say, yeah, I want to. And they come and they practically faint with boredom, because it's just, it's 16 different angles and so many takes, all of the same thing. So you're fighting boredom and fear, because in that 12-hour day you might be in close-up once or twice, and that's the key moment for you as an actor. And it's just awful when they say, now here we're going to set up for your close-up. Will be about an hour. Then you go back to your trailer and you just sit there sweating. And you come back on the set and it's all pointing at you, everyone's pointing at you, and especially when I was making those big Hollywood films, all the money's pointing at you, and the pressure's unbearable. One thing I'm glad that I made some American films, because it was interesting watching American actors. They're much less reverent in terms of the script than British actors. They, especially in comedies, they endlessly improvising, doing different things. They don't really care too much what was in the script. They don't care too much about where they've been told to stand. And I think that's very useful, and people should should do more of that in British films, because it comes back to my thing about freshness, really. The camera loves fresh, anything new, anything that hasn't been pre-rehearsed.
Don't assume that you have to take off your clothes. It's bullshit. There is no plot to which it's essential. It's usually, broadly speaking, by extension, it's a budgetary concern. The producers like it. It's got very little to do with art, it's got nothing to do with art, and it has nothing to do with truth. I don't know if there is a secret to collaboration with other actors. I've never been asked this question before. It's a good question. Usually I think what is exciting is when you realize that your fellow actor is entirely prepared, and that whatever preparation has been required has taken place elsewhere. And then if everybody's prepared, then you can start to rock.
And the first role your agent got you was
in something called A Royal Celebration when I was 6, and I think my whole character involved running in and going, "Mummy, Daddy," and running out again. So I thought I was brilliant.
even when you were this young and there were actors and playwrights hanging around, were there particular actors that you remembered that you wanted to be like?
It was always Emma Thompson. I was completely obsessed by Much Ado About Nothing, and I watched it so many times that the video broke, and I think my mum bought it for me about 3 times. I used to know the whole thing off by heart. I don't anymore. Might be quite useful if I did now, but I don't. And then Sense and Sensibility was complete, and in fact all her work I was completely obsessed by.
Just because I've had a lot of experience, it certainly doesn't mean that there are certain things that I'm really getting right or nailing. I mean, I would almost hope the opposite, because I want to always be finding new ways of being able to collaborate and being able to be included and involved and excited and passionate. The experience of making a film can often be really very, very hard, and it can leave one sort of feeling, okay, I'm okay with the fact that that's over now. And then lo and behold, the thing will come out and it'll be incredibly fantastic, even more than you could possibly have expected. So throughout my life, that has always been the case. Every filming experience is very, very different to the finished product, possibly with the exception of Sense and Sensibility, which was just absolutely glorious in every respect to make and completely glorious to watch, and still is for me to this day. Another question that I'm often asked is, could you help me in any way, or could you? And it's a funny thing, because actors can't really help other actors, and I find that quite frustrating, because I wish I could, because I'm sure there are so many actors out there who would give their right arm just to be in one scene of a film with no lines. I think what I would honestly say to people starting out, it is difficult. It is definitely a hard job to do, and you do have to keep working at it. You do have to keep practicing things. You have to allow yourself to make mistakes, make them, rehearse in your bedroom. Try not to look in the mirror too much, because then you rehearse a scene in front of a mirror and you like the way you've said something or done something, and all you will do is keep picturing yourself doing it the way you liked, rather than being completely present in the moment. No looking in mirrors, that's not good. You have to keep at it, you do. And if it is the thing that you really believe you want to do with your life, you will get there. You just have to keep going and keep going and keep going. And keep yourself busy. Don't wait for the phone to ring. Fill your life in other areas, because the more you enrich your life, the more enriched you'll be as an actor and as a person, and you'll be able to bring much more to each role that you hopefully will get the chance to play.
Well, directors, I don't know, I've worked with every kind of extreme. I've worked with incredibly hands-on, micromanaging directors like Roman Polanski. Oh my God, you got to say it like this, you got to pick up the coffee cup like this, I want you to hold it like that. And I've worked with, Stephen Frears now twice, who very rarely says anything. Seemed very good to me. Well, let's move on. I suppose you just have to adapt. I personally quite like a minimal approach, just a lot of praise. That was fabulous, darling. That's all I need. It's confidence, really.
People who teach acting, they have to talk for a very long time, sometimes 2 years of talk, or sometimes 3, and there isn't that much to say. And they start making it up, sometimes, or they'll concentrate on things that are undeniable. Like you can't say, I am feeling it. No, you're not. No, I can't. You're not feeling. I can't. I'm sorry, but you're not feeling. You got to feel. Yeah, I am. I think I'm feeling it. It's completely unnecessary. The audience have no interest in what you might be feeling. You're supposed to give the appearance of feeling something like you did when you were a kid. It is an extension of what you did in the backyard when you played the bank robber and the other guy played the policeman. There are many myths, and there are also PR myths, and everybody's supposed to toe the line, and like with everything else, the truth always works better. And I'm not saying that other people are lying. I'm saying that people, it's just my view. But I do think that sometimes younger actors are manipulated in a certain way. It's a matter of control, and they are made to feel that there is something that's out of their range or out of their reach. There's nothing that's out of your range or out of your reach.
Can you speak about your biggest surprise in finally seeing a film?
My biggest, they're all a surprise, really. They really are. When they work, they're all a surprise. When they don't, you go, oh, okay. But yeah, no, they are. I think Begin Again was a surprise that it worked, because it was 25 days and we were really up against it, and it was a lot of improvisation, and I'd never really done that before, and it was such a flash that it was sort of like, I've got no idea what just happened there. So that was great when that worked. But equally, Imitation Game, because it was a difficult subject. It's a difficult subject. And I said, you haven't seen it, so you won't know. But it's a really tricky one, and it's a tricky one to kind of to make that subject thrilling if you're not necessarily of a mathematical mind. They're all a surprise when they work.
With film, there's really no rehearsal. You're lucky if you get a moment round a table in the week before you start shooting. And suddenly you think, oh Christ, they're going to do that. Okay, well, that I see. Or worse, you start to, rehearse lightly. You start to say some lines as your character, and you see everyone looking nervous. And then the director says, yeah. I didn't see him having that voice. And then you have to rethink everything with a few days to go. I sound like such a terrible old lovey, but the dream is that you can trust them. If they're good, and if they're not in a panic. And with film, it's particularly important that people aren't in a panic. And quite often I am. And really the whole of film acting is about how to avoid panic and try and be as relaxed as you can. And if you're two relaxed actors together, both quite comfortable in the way you're playing a part, you can go into the scene with no preconceived idea and just see where it takes you, see what you do and react to that. And it's a lovely feeling, because everything's then fresh. The way you do your lines completely fresh, because it's based on what you just did. And the camera, I've learnt, tends to love anything that's fresh and which is invented in that moment. And that's very often the take that ends up in the film. Whereas when you're just repeating the way you'd practiced it for months in the bathroom mirror, that tends to be a bit dead.
The early days of walking on sets, when no one knows who you are, you have no credits to kind of precede you, you feel intimidated, and you are inexperienced, which is fine. You're supposed to be, obviously. Those were the most challenging times. A young actor phoned me from his trailer, and he was about to start a film job. And it was a big job, and he'd never really done a lot before. And they told him that he had 20 minutes before he was going onto the set for the first time, on the first day of the job. And between us, we decided that that's what you get paid for. You get paid for the 20 minutes in the trailer before you walk on the set. Lots of people think, I could probably be an actor. But they don't know about the 20 minutes in the trailer before you walk on, and that's the tough bit. Remember that no one knows what's going on in your head, and they never will. And I know that sounds stupid, but it's a good thing to remember. And remember that you're supposed to be scared. That's the normal, healthy, natural reaction to the job that you're about to start.